Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary friends. You're listening to Actors with Issues with me, your host, Juan Ayala, bringing you another quick and casual chat with a delightful actor from the small screen, the big screen, and the Broadway stage. Joining us today is an actor you've seen in Netflix's The Island, the second season of Apple TV Plus series Truth Be Told, and in a little Broadway show you may have heard of called Hamilton. It's Anthony Lee Medina. Anthony, welcome to the show. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me, Juan. Hi, everybody.
So before we get into Hamilton, Truth Be Told, and all of your past work, we're going to play a quick icebreaker game called Getting to Know You. It's just a
Okay.
few brief questions to get the ball rolling. The most important question always is, are you a coffee person or a tea drinker?
Oh, I'm a coffee person. I'm Cuban and from New York. What the hell?
uh, if you had to choose one, stage acting or screen acting?
Okay, acting, stage. Yes. Yeah.
What's something that you can do that might surprise people?
Oh, I talk in a lot of different acts, like voices. I have a lot of character voices that I pull out randomly all the time. Yeah.
Perfect segue. Have you mastered any accents? And if so, can we hear one?
Oh yeah, I just want to let you know that I have a few accents, but this is probably the most consistent one because I am Cuban. Yeah, but then I like if anyone ever needs a Russian, Cuban Russian, I can't do it right now. Now I'm on the spot. I'm like, oh God. Yeah, a lot of different voices.
What actor has had the biggest influence on you?
Ooh, John Leguizamo. Yeah,
What could you do all day and not consider a waste of time?
play with my dog. Yeah.
Is there anything in this business that still scares you?
Oh, this we'll talk about this later, but being gay and Latino, period.
Scary.
Yeah,
Scary in general, yeah.
yeah, challenging.
And describe your most memorable audition in 3 words, and memorable can be good or bad. So, dealer's choice, up to you.
Oh God, immediately. Devastating, disrespectful, shocking.
Oh boy. So Anthony, you got started acting at a fairly young age, at least from what I've like read online and whatnot. And you went on to do 3 years in Hamilton, multiple recurring roles in television. But what was it about acting and storytelling that grasped your attention so much that you wanted to just go all in and do it for a living?
It was inherent. There was nothing else that there's nothing else that excites me the way that like diving into a character does. There's never been anything else that I've considered, like actually considered. I've like talked about if I had to be something, I'd be like a lawyer or a cook. There's still artistry in there.
Mm,
Lawyers, well, I guess, strange as that sounds, like a lawyer, you're creating a storyline. You're getting these facts and creating the storyline to like sell it to an audience, basically. But it's always been somehow in the creation, in creative. Yeah, acting just felt like the only thing that I could possibly ever be doing with my life. And it was affirmed by everybody else too. Like the more and more I did it, the more people told me that I should be doing it. And yeah, that's who I am.
mm. And like over the years of your career, has there, I mean, I'm sure I know the answer, but have there been moments of doubt or moments where you wanted to quit and then something else comes along and changes
Uh,
your mind?
sure, I'm gonna say yes, but to be honest with you, no. The doubt has always been beat by a manifestation of doing this as my career. Um, like when I was like struggling, because there's a period after I did Spring Awakening from 19 to 21.
Mm,
After that, I basically just stopped working. I was a cater waiter, I was a babysitter, I was a bartender, you name it, I did it. And my mom kept trying to tell me to like go get another degree, like get a degree. I didn't have a degree, but to
mm,
do something that wasn't this because it's such a fickle business industry. And my response to her at the time, and I stick by this, I would rather die trying to be an actor and doing anything that is in the full momentum of this career than to do something else. So doubt is an impossible factor in there. I can't have
mm,
doubt. I was slinging drinks at a bar, but I was always in the back of my mind, I'm an actor. I would be in voices, I would do characters, I would create storylines of people like that I was serving. It's it is an undeniable thing. I may have just like ended up, you know, doing very minimal off Broadway things or even like doing regional, like only regional theater, but I always knew this is what I was going to do. This is what my life was going to be based around. So doubt, no.
I think that it's really important for actors to, there's like a fine line between not having doubt and then not being realistic, you know? And it's really important to have that balance because for me, I'm someone that like tries to stay realistically optimistic because when I was younger, I was very stupidly optimistic. I thought I could do anything. I thought the world was mine. And you just set yourself up for disappointment because the world is not ours. Obviously, we're one of like however many billion people are on this planet. But it's so important to stay grounded in that way. And I mean, they say to approach acting that way, to like stay grounded, stay in the moment. And it's like, why not approach life the same way, you know? Like there's so much like forward thinking and that's important, but I'm like, get through this month, get through this pilot season, finish the year, like forget the 20 years when you accept your award or whatever, like worry about that when it comes, you know, because otherwise, and there's also like a fine line between manifesting and I think planning a little bit too far ahead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think people misunderstand manifestation.
Mm.
Manifestation is two things, and people often just think it's one thing. Manifestation for most people is just the mentality that this is the truth, or like this is where we're headed, or this is what I'm going to accomplish, or this is who I'm going to be. But manifestation is that affirming in the positive. I am a brilliant actor. I am working nonstop, saying these things in the positive, so they're conscious truths, but then also doing everything in your power to make that thing true.
Mm.
So like it's not just me saying that, it's also the matter of me making sure I am reading my scripts in full, memorizing my lines, doing the work on that, going to the gym, taking care of my skin. These are things that like are part of our, it's horribly, that is also part of it, but they're part of our industry. And I think that it is easy to get lost in doubt or the mentality that you need to either think 20 years ahead or be stuck in the moment. It's neither both nor and. Does that make sense?
Neither here nor there.
Neither here nor there. There it is. Like that's not the phrase, but you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I hear you. It is hard and it's balanced and it changes all the time. You're just catching me on a good day. But like, yeah, this is the weirdest industry anyone can ever be a part of. Like, what are we doing?
Mm.
We're pretending to be other people, and right now we're just sending in tapes with our partners or our friends or our coworkers and sending them to people with 1,000 other people, trying to see if someone wants to choose us. It's a very weird industry. So you can't think in the future because you might be thinking too small.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe you think like, oh, you're accepting like your big thing is accepting an award. Maybe it's actually like you run like an entire production. Like maybe it's something so much bigger than that. I don't even know what we were talking about anymore. I'm just talking about.
That's the beauty of podcasts. You can just talk about anything, you know?
Great.
Yeah, I agree. You know, it's definitely like, I mean, Lord knows how many actors are working consistently and never get nominated for awards. You know, it's like, so in a way, for me, it's like getting an award is a little bit like boxing yourself in because there's a very select group of people who get nominated for awards and then even smaller who wins them. Sure, I'd like to be like one of the, unfortunately, it'd be one of the few like Latinos to win an Emmy or an Oscar or a Tony or anything, but it's also just like I just want to be one of the Latinos on TV in general, like because there's like 5 of us.
It was Gloria Calderon Collette just did a podcast, I think, with Sam Sanders.
Diaglo, love her.
I love her, but she said this fact that I didn't know, and I don't know if this fact is still truth. I don't know how long ago this podcast was, but that there were 665 scripted television series on television. 5% of the actors on those shows identify as Latinx.
Mhm.
What? We're at least I think we're a quarter of this country. Like how
I think 22%. I have to do all these
close
statistics for work
enough?
all the time, but yeah.
Yeah, we're all constantly I'm like reevaluating. Are we still like 25% or 22, whatever it is? Um, yeah,
Regardless, still severely underrepresented, you
we
know?
are underrepresented and poorly represented half the time too. Like a lot of the time, like we aren't playing things that we should be playing, and
Mhm.
I think we've seen a lot more of things that are more appropriate for us and written by people like Gloria,
Mhm.
um, that make a lot more sense. Strangely, there's not a lot of space, and there should be.
Mhm.
Um, but at the end of the day, the phrase that keeps coming back to my head is "shoot for the moon, even if you land, even if you miss, you'll land among the stars." Have you
Mhm.
heard that before? I
Yeah.
think it's like a classroom. It's like on our
Yeah,
classroom.
always. Yeah.
Yeah. But like, yeah, like even if you're shooting for an Oscar, if you end up on television, you still won. Like at the end of the day, we're
Mhm.
getting paid to do what we love to do. So
And in some cases, you get a whole person's salary for one episode of TV, depending on if they're, the amount of money that actors make to me still feels a little gross. But
on
then I'm
TV
like, but how
film,
much advertising
oh,
I'm like, how much are they getting in ad dollars? So, get a chunk of the change.
here's the thing. Also,
Um,
the actors on television film are making a lot of money, but the people above them are making way more.
oh,
Like,
ridiculous. Yeah.
and we're the ones that are, you know, in the forefront. You're the reason why you're watching the show sometimes is because you like know the actor, you want to watch that show. Um, yeah, but you know what? I will take TV and film pay, any version of it, over theater pay. That's the reason why that's why I had to think about your question of stage or TV and film. And I was like, this isn't about money. This is about the artistry. Yeah, I would like to be on stage then. Financially, like I was in the best Broadway show, making a salary that most people on Broadway don't make. And I was still making far less than I would have made doing one episode of television a week.
Mhm.
It was I left uh, Hamilton to go shoot The Island. And if you've seen that show, it's a fine show. It's okay. I think you know, something, and then you actually like step outside of it, and you're like, oh wow, I was in something different than what I. Doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah.
Um, but I left and was getting paid the minimum on television,
Yeah.
like a
Scale.
regular scale, like no negotiations possible. This offer or where you can't have the job. And I was like, well, I've never been on television to series regular. I'm taking it, and I was making great money, and I was doing nothing. I was sitting on a beach in the Dominican Republic in a chair, like being painted white because I'd been bitten. Like, meanwhile, like when I went back to Hamilton doing 8 shows a week, and everything hurt. My voice was tired, my knees were
Mm.
tired, and I was getting paid nowhere near as much, and so much more work. So yeah, the TV film pay, I will. It is gross, but also like, give me that.
Right. But it's also like, again, like thinking smart as an actor and, work smarter, not harder. Um, if you really think about like Broadway doesn't pay your residuals. They
No,
pay you while you're there, and that's it. With TV, I'm very lucky that like during the like right before the pandemic, I had finished like a couple of episodes in a show, and like still I'm like, okay, I'll take the residual because that is gonna help me pay X, Y, and Z. Oh, I can go and take a
okay,
class, I can do workshops. Like
yep,
that income like doesn't happen in other sectors of this industry. It's really only TV and film. And sometimes it's not even all film because it depends on the scale of the film.
that too. The other thing that I think we forget is that sure, maybe okay, let's say you did a film and they paid you 100K. Maybe that's the only time you worked that year.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's a lot. Actually, that's a lot of money, but you're actually taking probably more like 50. So you
Right.
basically made a normal person's salary. You're working a lot less. You're making a lot more money to do a lot less work. But at the end of the day, you might not work again. So I'm
Right.
like, I think it kind of balances out. I actually think everyone should be getting paid more. Also, like, yeah, it's just a weird career. You can't really like. I think we should be getting paid more just because of survival. Like, you got to stay in this thing, and
Yeah.
residuals are great. Residuals have saved me. They just saved me. Like, I was like, oh, I just got a bunch of residuals out of nowhere. I can pay a bunch of credit cards off,
Right.
but that comes so few and far between. And I got lucky. I worked a random job a couple weeks ago, it paid me well enough to like get me to the next thing. But it's really, you're constantly just like putting away coin to make sure you can get to the next job.
Yeah.
Do you have a day job? Well, besides this, because you do this, right? Can I ask you a
So,
personal question on
yeah,
this?
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I was like, I don't know how, like, do you have like a normal day job? Do you like do something that is like the thing that is your financial, your income, your normal income, or are you all on acting? Because if you're all on
So
acting, like,
I wish I was all in acting, honey. I
yeah.
wouldn't. So I have been a freelance journalist for the last 5 years. And then about 6 months ago, I used to work at a gym. So for 2 years, about 9 months before the pandemic, I worked at a gym. And then after all the gyms reopened, like 2 falls ago, I don't even remember anymore. I got like a management position because I'm like, okay, all the tapes, you don't have to be in the city constantly for auditions,
Mhm.
so I can get a real job and get some big boy money. It was pathetic money. It was draining. So then with my freelance journalist job, I was like, are there openings for anything else like stable? And they really liked this podcast, so they had me do one for them. So that is income that I get. So I'm doing a podcast for them. I do their social media stuff. I write reviews. I do the interviews and stuff. So it's like a bunch of stuff I do for that company. For Media Village, that's been very, very good to me, and I love them all. Um, and this podcast is basically like a hobby, but my heart and soul is in this one.
Cool,
If
cool.
that's
That
okay
makes
to
total
say.
sense. Yeah. No, like that's the thing. Like we don't have, unless we were the names that you knew. Like if you
Mm.
were like, oh, if I was John Leguizamo and you were uh, Olga Merides is the first name that came to my head. Like maybe we wouldn't be doing those things, but we have to like remember, and it also has to be understood by many other people. We do a lot, we put on a lot of hats to survive in this thing.
Yeah.
I got lucky at the top of the pandemic. I got a random friend, like a friend of a friend, was like, "Hey, my friend works for an audiobook company, and they're looking for a Latino who's gay to read a book." And I was like, "Sure." And then everything shut down, and they were like, "Hey, will you fill this slot for us of like being the Latino in the group?" And that has been literally, this is the first time in my life. Prior to Hamilton, I was like doing all the jobs, and then Hamilton ended, then the pandemic started, and this is the first time in my life that I'm not in a position where I am working like in a day job.
Mm.
Like I'm working in an artist day job. Like I'm still reading. Like I'm not really doing anything that's like strenuous or anything
Right.
like that. But this is a crazy business, and we have to remind people, like, yeah, we do a lot of things, and even if you're not seeing that thing happening, don't feel shame either. Like I feel like there's a lot of we don't talk about the thing we do to survive when we're actors. Like some of
Mm.
us do, and then some of us don't. And I think it should be done by everybody. I think it's important to understand that like this is a very wild business, and we are all just trying to get through it. And with a little support from each other, it might actually be a little easier.
Yeah. God, Lord knows how many like little actor support groups I like was a part of when COVID first started, because it's like we are all losing our minds. We're all like, we don't get to act. We don't even get to audition for anything.
Yep.
And that's why I started the podcast, was to like check in on my fellow, like the first 20, 30 episodes was me just talking like with my friends. But all my actor friends or people that I met or whatever. And then it slowly started going into like talking with actors who are like frequently on television or a series regular or in movies or whatever. Um, and but like that sort of that little core value of like checking up on people and asking like, how did you stay creative during the pandemic? Because Lord knows, even all these actors who are series regulars, they were all out of work for 5, 6 months until SAG was like, it's okay to go back to work and here's testing and all of that. But like thankfully that like that little core value has stayed there, because all of us were on the same boat. No actors were working, like
Mm-hmm.
that's the one time that we all had something in common with Brad Pitt. All of us were unemployed. Like, like we were all
Okay.
just like not working, not doing what we want to do. So one of the jobs that you got during the pandemic was Truth Be Told. And that's when we first chatted, because you were on my other podcast talking
Yeah.
about the show. And it's been some time since that came out. So what is it like looking back, just what is with that 2020 hindsight, what was that whole experience like doing a show during the pandemic, doing that type of show? It's like this like
Um,
mystery thriller.
yeah. I learned a lot on that set in a very different way than I was expecting. first of all, pandemic. So the show itself was, it was the first time I wasn't really allowed to be involved with the people I was working with. We were
Mm.
all, 6 feet away and being very separated and testing constantly and all this stuff. And then really, the scene's over, you put a mask on, you walk away. And for me, the way that I get comfortable enough to start on a new show or a set or anything is getting to know people so that I feel like I have a safe space to do the work that I need to do. And unfortunately, that wasn't the case. I couldn't really get to do that on that show. So my first day, there's a scene that did not air. I think I should be allowed to talk about this. My first day of saying lines was a walk and talk that was like, I think it was like 2 pages, maybe it was a little longer. Me walking Makai's character around Shelter's offices. If you haven't seen Truth Be Told, it's a murder mystery thriller. Kate Hudson starred in season 2 with Octavia Spencer as the lead. Kai Pfeiffer's in it. Michael Beach. Tons of wonderful actors. And in season 2, we follow basically Kate Hudson's character, who is sort of like a cult leader of sorts, of like a Goop style brand. And I do this walk and talk, and I was nervous as all hell, and I failed. I've never been so bad on a set. I've never, I remember my first television job, I couldn't get a line and I like really failed. I'm talking like 2 pages of me just like, because I couldn't, I had to readjust how I did the thing. It was like pandemic brain, but also like I hadn't been on television in a while. Like I didn't remember how to do the thing. So it was an education of really like, especially for me and for anyone, like not only know your lines, because I knew my lines, but get in your head enough where your brain kind of just like, it's inherent, it's unconscious, like the lines are just coming out of your mouth, especially because also it was a walk and talk. So I was like pointing at things and like referencing other people. It was so bad. They cut the scene. They cut the scene for other reasons, which was wonderful. Like they cut it because they actually messed up the setting of the office. Like they made the spaces incorrectly. So they had to change the entire office around. They were like, we're not going to go back. So they cut it, and it actually just turns into one scene now, which is the scene that Makai asked me about Shelter, and I like lean over the table. Actually, I think they cut that too. My character, like they wrote him like a little like there was a little bit of like sinewy sexuality on him that like literally it was like the last line of every scene I'd say something a little bit like, and they just cut it. And it was something that's so interesting because I first was like mad, and then I was like, oh wait, this makes this character so much more like refined and specific and scary to watch, at least for me, because I knew what I was going through. But that show was wild. It was that. It was also another experience of, because the island was like this too, where they didn't want us to know anything, and I was like,
Yeah.
I find that so difficult, and this is the thing that I've been battling, because I understand why a writer would want to keep it a certain way so that you get a certain performance, but you've hired me to do a job, and I can tell your story better if I know what the story is. And more so, I think it comes from, I'm from theater world. Like I get the full script and score. I learn everything about it, and I work my way backwards. That's how my process works. So TV and film world, when it's, well, not film world, but TV world, where it's like, we're not going to tell you the storyline. It's really hard to really gauge what you're doing in the show. Like when I auditioned for the show, there were 2 random scenes that are not in the show. They sent me
Dummy sides.
dummy sides,
Hate those.
and dummy sides that really painted him a very specific way. It was like this, like the first scene was me doing this thing where I was like getting someone to replace me. I'm becoming the character. And they were playing position, and I'm like, just so you know, like Micah doesn't like the following things. And I go off on this list of food, not in the show. Then a scene where I approached I was orphaned, so I approached the woman who ran my foster home, and I like have this like, you ruined me, like all this crying, and I was like, what is this? I had no idea what the show was about. I never seen it, and taking that information and then getting the scenes I'd gotten and trying to like create a semblance of Ramon in that show was very, I won't say it was challenging, but it was mostly just interesting. I was like, how do I, because I'd already done it. The Island, Donovan, that character was so, I was so confused by him. You don't, the character arc, he's basically, you know, he's a stalker. He has an obsession issue. He has, he gets displaced when he disappears when trauma happens, basically. But they wouldn't tell me why. They wouldn't. So I had to make up all these answers. But then by the time we got to the end, I was like, oh, these answers don't all fit. So I have to. It's a weird TV and film thing. I learned how to do that better on Truth Be Told. I like better understood, like, just like allow the thing to happen. They're gonna write around whatever you're creating. They'll push you in a place they need you to push. That show was just. Also, it was like Octavia Spencer and Kate Hudson and Mekhi Phifer. I was like, y'all can't be in the same set as me. This is crazy. Like
Let this happen.
like y'all, no, this is ridiculous. It was really fun. I love that show. And it was a gift in the pandemic to like, especially because I just moved to LA right before the pandemic started. So to like have an opportunity to see something in LA. Like I hadn't even been, we got locked inside since we got here. So to not only be able to like have a job, but have as good of a job as that. And Apple TV is really wonderful to work for. They're so kind. Octavia was so wonderful to work with. Wonderful Mekhi. Mekhi was like, our scenes were as so like heavy, and we're kind of from a similar world. Like we're both from like hood mentality, hood culture. So we kind of were able to talk to each other in a very specific way, and yeah, it was a really fun process and a fun project, and I learned a lot. Yeah,
we did touch on this before, but just the issue, I guess, or more the struggle. It's not an issue, obviously, because we're both queer and we're both Latino, but of that and how that has been sort of how that has affected your career or your personal life. Like, how has that been something that you've dealt with?
I don't really have a great answer for that. I think a lot of my experience, I mean, that's the only experience I've had. Like, it feels like just like what everyone has a version of a challenge. Like, if you're a woman in this industry, if you are queer, period, if you are handicapped, if you are any version of anything, except honestly, probably like a cis white hetero man, like you're going to have a challenge in this industry. And I think that that the journey of this process of being an actor or an actress or whatever version of that you need for yourself, is figuring out how to overcome that, but also use it. Like at the end of the day, the thing that it has been hard to see roles that I knew I could accomplish in a very specific way. I'm not going to say better, but in a very specific, tender way that was not offered to me because the people behind the table wanted a straight male. It's also been really sad to watch, and this is a big conversation we've been having lately, but it's been very sad to watch cis straight men play gay roles. And I'm not saying that shouldn't be the case. I think that we should be playing everything and anything we could possibly get our hands on and be truthful in. But I think it's really hard when you look around and you realize that there's a lot of people that aren't getting the opportunity to. And it's just based around the fact that this is being gatekept by a bunch of people that have a very specific mentality of how we're supposed to look and act and be. And I think what is the disservice they're doing to themselves is that you get more interesting stories when you get more diversified humans. The people are, when you look at a screen and you realize that everyone on screen has a completely different experience of life, those stories are usually generally done very well. I think when everyone is from a very specific mentality, you get a good story. I'm not saying you won't, but I think that you're missing out on an opportunity. So being Latino and being gay, yeah, this industry has done a lot of that to me. And I guess I'm overcoming it by still going because I don't give a fuck. Can I curse?
Absolutely, you can.
Oh,
Everyone
fuck.
thinks they can't. Yeah.
Well, some, you never know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but like I don't give a fuck. And And I've been cast as straight, I've been cast as gay, I've been cast as Latino, I've been cast as German. Like I've done a lot of random things. And I think that in not caring about that and in just blindly running towards it, it's actually done me very well. Like I just sucks sometimes. It fucking sucks. Like I've watched shows where I'm like, wow, y'all literally somebody behind that table was like, no, you know what? There's this straight guy that's really good at being gay. And I'm like, y'all, mm, I think he's phenomenal. I'm gonna premise all this with this. But Stanley Tucci doing that film he just did, where him and his gay lover are dealing with like the death. One of them is gonna die. I haven't seen the movie. I'm assuming it's brilliant actually. But why did he produce a film and he didn't add anyone gay? Maybe
Mhm.
he's not. I don't know his personal life, whatever it is. But I wish you would have at least cast the actor opposite him as a gay actor.
Right.
I understand if you're producing it and you want it to be your story that you tell, but you have the opportunity to allow someone that is going to bring more authenticity to the experience into the space. And you've chosen in doing a film like that, and there's so many versions of this that exist. I'm just picking one, but you've chosen to fill a space to allow basically your inability to understand the truth of the matter to be affirmed by other people, and
Mm.
that is trash.
Yeah.
I, I, yeah, just trash and it sucks. But welcome to our industry.
Yeah. It really is like, and it sucks to it sucks that it's true, but it sucks to have to tell young actors it's like, look, this is how this works, and it sucks, but it is what it is. But it's like, but things are only going to get better from here.
I don't know how you feel about this, and you tell me if you feel differently. I think they're first of all walking into a completely different version of this industry. There's
Mm.
so many different mediums. There's now you can get in through TikTok. I worked with an actor who literally did an audition. They had a bunch of TikTok followers. They wanted to be an actor, and someone reached out and offered them a job. It's a very different world. Um, the representation. I didn't see a trans character on television until Pose. Like maybe I saw them, but
They
they
were like a
didn't.
caricature. They were
Yes,
not like an authentic story. Yeah.
there was no authenticity involved in their storylines. It was always like they were probably a prostitute or involved in drugs or something crazy.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, representation has increased, and you can find like a truthful representation now on television or film or theater or YouTube story or whatever things are happening now. Younger people get that as well, but then also like I said, that TikTok thing. I don't know about you. I feel like I was preparing for a version of this industry that when I got to the place, it didn't exist anymore. I'm like, I got to the mountain, I went, where's everybody? And like, oh, they're on TikTok land. I'm like, oh no, I don't know how to do that. I'm not an Instagram person. I'm not great at them. Like, I'm fine,
Mm.
but like, I don't know how to do that. And the younger you are, the more capable you are of that, it seems. Like,
Mhm.
I just feel like there's a lot more of that. So their version of like not only getting into the industry, but also showing the industry what representation looks like is so different.
Mm.
So like I can't even like when younger actors ask me questions, I'm like, I don't know the answers. Like if you want to talk process, you want to talk like character creation, you want to talk things like that, absolutely. How do you get into this industry? I don't know. I got lucky.
We're
I
still
got
figuring
lucky.
that out. Like,
I don't even know if I'm in it right now. I might be doing something else. I don't know. Um, yeah, do you feel like that? Like, do you feel like social media has like been like, do you feel like social media has changed how you do this thing?
I have not. I refuse to succumb to the pressure that social media puts on people. I know people who post a selfie or a really dumb, non-creative reel or whatever on Instagram because they're worried about algorithm,
Yeah.
follower count. I'm not looking to be a stunt casting who's like, like, and I think that's like kind of the difference between where you started. If you started wanting to do TV film, you might have a slightly different approach to people who started doing
Mhm.
theater. Because with
Okay.
theater, it's like you have a more grounded approach to it all, a more creative process. I don't know that many people who are like, I don't want to do theater. I only want to do like TV or movies. They're usually like 12 if they do have that mindset these days. But like adults, I don't really know people like that. But because there's so much content to watch, and it's not just like the big four networks and a few cable networks. It's all the premiums like HBO, all the streaming, all of that stuff, like YouTube TV or YouTube Premium or YouTube Originals. Like,
IMDb TV.
what happened?
IMDb TV. Do you know
Oh
this?
yeah, yeah.
I didn't know. I keep getting auditions for this, and I'm like, what is this? Where are
Yeah.
these shows on IMDb?
It's a separate app. It's like a separate thing, and it's all free. They are owned by Amazon now.
Okay.
So it's like if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch IMDb, which who doesn't have Amazon these days, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a. Remember Quibi?
Oh, you thought it was like
Like that
that?
was one of those. I was like, I don't think that I want to do this. This feels weird.
You know, there's just so much content out there now that like younger generations are, that's all they have access to. Like theater is never, sadly, never going to be widely accessible. So no one's like, I want to be on Broadway unless you grew up like in the tri-state area and you know about Broadway. You
Yep.
know, which is like usually the case. Like we all came from like, I'm from Connecticut, you know, so many
Oh,
young
I'm
actors
from
I know.
Westchester.
There you go.
From Westchester, New York. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I think that the approach is a little different, but like I refuse to become like obsessed with the algorithm and trends and all of that and like what's the latest thing. Like I just downloaded TikTok because of work, because they want to start doing they want to start putting clips of our interviews and stuff on TikTok. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I already edit all the videos anyway. So
This
like,
is the clip.
right. So screw TikTok. Um, but yeah, it's just it's a very different industry, mind you. I assure you that like the actors in the early 2000s say to people, to like our generation, like, oh, you kids are lucky, you don't have to, you know, it was, I used to have to spend hundreds of dollars a month on mailing out all of my headshots and stamps
Oh
and
yeah.
envelopes, and now you guys get to just click click click. And I'm like, yeah, thank God, because
Look.
we'd be even more broke if we had to mail out
Oh
our headshots
gosh.
for every
Yeah.
audition.
The thing is, it gets easier and easier. Like at the end of the day, also like I think about like how many Latin actors we know that were existing when we were young. It's like
Mhm.
I can count them on my hands.
Right.
Now, like I can say there's a lot of people that I know that are like what doing well enough that I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like those are representations. Like it is getting more and more. It
Yeah.
gets easier for everybody. We're just getting older. And
Right.
we're starting to reach the you kids don't know phase.
Yeah. um Thankfully, because of all of these new platforms where content is being made, we're getting more representation because there's more spots available. So
Yeah.
like back in the day, I only remember like Lopez show and Taina. I don't know if you remember her. Those are
I
like
yes.
those are like the only two shows with like all Hispanic casts. And now you have like
Brothers Must See.
Promise, but they're reviving it. It's coming
I
back next
know.
month.
I just saw
I
that.
might get to interview some of them, so I'm so excited
Oh,
to talk to
cool.
them. Um, but you know, they're reviving that. Lopez is working on a pilot with his daughter right now. You have all of Gloria's Calderon Kellett shows. She did with Love, Promised Land, Hentified, sadly is canceled, but you know, that was on for a while. On My Block, you had Savannah, the series. Like that many shows did not exist at any point
Have you
when we were
seen The
younger.
Cleaning Lady? Sorry, this is
I have not watched it yet. No, my boyfriend wants to.
talk about some representation. Watch that show. I was like, oh, y'all are doing something I've never. First off, to be because Promised Land already got moved from what
To
NBC
Hulu. Yeah,
to
ABC
Hulu.
to
Yeah.
Hulu.
Yeah, so they're already pushing it out of like network. Cleaning Lady is, I think the lead male is Latino, and then the lead female is Cambodian.
I think so.
I've
She's like
never,
French Cambodian. She was in Daredevil. It's the only way I know her. She was Electra.
pushing everybody.
I watch everything. I have to. I have to write about
Yeah, yeah.
all of it.
I will say that show, I think, as far as representation, as far as being network representation, even though they are telling a story about based around like gangs and drugs,
Right.
The base core storyline, which is basically this woman trying to do anything in her power to take care of her son, being played by a Cambodian woman who is phenomenal. Like I'm talking, I'm getting chills thinking about her performance. She is so good.
Mm.
That is that we are seeing more representation. There is more representation. It is
Yeah.
sadly not being able to be treated like the rest of the shows. In an interview, Gloria talks about that as well. That like, what's sad is that the qualifiers to stay on the air, to be a Latino show and to be any other type of show, are very different.
Mm.
The way that they the way that they do press for the Latino shows, the way that they put up billboards for the Latino shows, very different than how they do it for an all-white cast or
Mhm.
all-black cast. It's just not as they don't take care of us as easily, and they hold us accountable in a very different way. Our
Yeah.
shows, at least. But slowly but surely, more and more, we'll
Yeah.
see. You and I will be on
It,
TV.
but yeah, so we're gonna wrap up with a final game called Now That We Know You, since we've gotten to chat for the last 45 minutes. So we'll start with fill in the blank. If I weren't working in the arts, I'd be.
Pie maker.
uh,
It's,
if if you could go back to school to study anything, what would you choose?
I go to culinary school.
Me too.
Yeah.
What's the best advice you've ever gotten?
Oh God. Comparison is the thief of joy.
Amen.
Beautiful.
And what's the worst advice you've ever gotten?
Um, be less gay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty bad advice.
I'm not sure if you've watched Mare of Easttown, but one of the actors, Mackenzie Lansing, was on the show, and the worst advice she got was like, dye your hair blonde, stay in the closet, lose 20 pounds, like just all these things. And this, when she didn't do that, she books a show like Mare of Easttown,
Mhm.
like Emmys everywhere. It's like, see what happens. Like, if anything, she was being held back, unfortunately. But
Walk into the room as yourself always. At the end of the day, like they don't want you, they don't want you.
mm,
Moving on.
can't change their
If you're
minds.
gonna be a caricature of yourself on a set and then play a role on top of that, that's two performances you have to give. No, thank you.
That sounds exhausting. And lastly, in 10 words or less, what advice would you give to a young actor?
Oh God. Manifest your reality, live your truth.
Love it. Awesome. Anthony, thank you so much for being on the show today. Such a wonderful conversation. Again, I wish that I got to talk to people for this long, but again, press days, they're like, you have 15 minutes, 10 minutes. I've gotten like 7 minutes before. I'm like, what am I gonna say? Intro and outro, and that's it. Like,
What's your name?
thanks for being here. Bye. Like, that's it. For folks who want to find you on Instagram, where can they find you?
My handle for everything is Ant Lee Me 123. Anthony Lee Medina 123. Shortened. Anthony Me.
Awesome. And you can all find us on Instagram at Actors with Issues. Give me a follow at Juanial Official, and you can check out our full video interviews on YouTube at Actors with Issues Podcast. Listen on the go wherever you get your podcasts, new episodes every Monday. And if you're looking for some new shows to binge, go watch Anthony Lee Medina in The Island on Netflix and season 2 of Truth Be Told on Apple TV Plus. I almost said Netflix again. I'm Juaniala. This is Actors with Issues, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.